On May 23, 1939, the USS Squalus, one of the Navy's newest, most advanced submarines, went down during a routine test dive. What happened next was this unbelievable story of 33 men trapped on the pitch-black ocean floor. It kicked off a desperate 48-hour race against time to pull them from the abyss. A rescue that would test the very limits of human endurance and change undersea rescue forever.
Okay, just try to put yourself there for a second. You're hundreds of feet down in the freezing cold Atlantic. Suddenly, it's total darkness. The air pressure drops so fast your ears pop violently. The whole submarine just lurches, tilting over to this insane 45-degree angle. You, your crewmates, heavy equipment, everything is thrown across the room, crashing into the icy seawater that is just pouring in. This is real. This is happening.
So how in the world did it all go so wrong so fast? Let's back up just a few minutes. It's the morning of May 23rd, off the coast of New Hampshire. For the 59 guys on board, this was supposed to be a totally routine high-speed dive test. Just another day.
In the control room, you've got this indicator board they called the Christmas tree. And right now, it's a beautiful sight. All green lights. As far as the captain and crew knew, that meant every single hatch, valve, and opening on that sub was sealed tight. They were good to go. All systems green for the dive. But those lights, they were wrong. Dead wrong. As the Squalus slipped beneath the waves, a panicked voice screams over the intercom. A massive valve, the main air intake for the engines, was wide open, and now tons of freezing Atlantic seawater were just roaring into the back of the submarine, sending it on a one-way trip to the bottom of the ocean.
To really get how dire their situation was, you have to understand what it meant to be a submariner back in 1939. I mean, the risks they took were they were off the charts, and everybody knew it.
In fact, the sealers had this grim nickname for their own job. They called it the coffin service. And, that wasn't them being dramatic. It was just a cold, hard fact. The technology was still pretty new, and accidents that killed everyone on board were terrifyingly common.
And if you want to put that risk in real-world terms, get this. Insurance companies at the time literally wrote it into their policies that they would not pay out if you died in a submarine accident. They basically considered it a statistical certainty. That's the level of danger these men signed up for every single day.
So, back on the Squalus. It's sinking fast, water is flooding in, and the lights are out. The crew is forced to make these awful, split-second decisions that they know are going to mean life for some and certain death for others. As water gushed into the rear of the submarine, an electrician's mate named Lloyd Mannis gets the order to seal the watertight door. Can you just imagine trying to move this 200-pound piece of solid steel, knowing that on the other side, you can hear your friends, your crewmates, trapped in the flooding compartment? And that order came from Captain Oliver Naquin. He had to make an absolutely impossible choice. Seal that door, sacrificing the 26 men in the back, to give the 33 survivors in the front of the sub even a sliver of a chance to live. It is a commander's absolute worst nightmare.
But the danger wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. Salt water was now flooding the forward battery room, which was creating a time bomb. If it mixed, it would create hydrogen gas and a massive explosion that would have just vaporized the sub. So another sailor, Lawrence Gaynor, crawls through the rising water into this tiny space that's just filled with a miniature lightning storm of electrical sparks. In the dark, somehow he finds the battery disconnects and shuts off the power, saving everyone's life. An incredible act of heroism.
Okay, so with the immediate threat of sinking and exploding dealt with, the Squalus finally settles into the mud on the ocean floor. The chaos is over, but now a new enemy, a much quieter one, starts to creep in for the survivors. Time.
They came to rest 240 feet down. At that depth, the pressure outside is immense, just crushing. The slightest crack in the hull and the whole submarine would implode so fast, your brain wouldn't even have time to register what happened.
And they knew the clock was ticking. They did the math and figured they had, best case, about 48 hours of breathable air. After that, the carbon dioxide would build up to lethal levels. The race had officially begun.
So just picture it. 33 men trapped together in a cold, dark, steel tube at the bottom of the sea. They had no way of knowing if anyone on the surface even knew they were alive, let alone where they were. All they could do was try to survive and wait. To make their air last as long as possible, the men started using this technique called labored breathing. They'd take these short, sharp little breaths. And yeah, it conserved oxygen.
but the cost was brutal. It caused terrible nausea and pounding, skull-splitting headaches that went on for hours and hours.
Meanwhile, up on the surface, a miracle. The Squalus had managed to release a marker buoy. A massive rescue operation spun into action, and it all hinged on a brand new piece of technology that, well, was completely unproven.
The rescue ship, the Falcon, shows up with something called the McCann Rescue Chamber. Think of it like a giant 9-ton pear-shaped diving bell. The idea was to lower it down, clamp it over the submarine's escape hatch, and then ferry sailors to the surface. The only problem? It had never, ever been used in a real rescue. This was its first time out. No pressure.
A diver made the incredibly dangerous trip down to attach a cable to the sub, and when his boots clanged on the hull, the men inside just erupted with joy. The bell made its first trip down and came back up with survivors, then a second, then a third. It was working. Against all odds, this experimental thing was actually working. But on the fourth and final trip, disaster almost struck again.
And they came so close to failing. The steel cable that was hoisting the bell up to the surface jammed, and it started to fray under the enormous strain. 5 of its 7 steel strands just snapped. The bell, with the last group of survivors and the captain inside, was just left dangling there. The sailors on the Falcon had to manually haul the bell up by hand, inch by agonizing inch, to get them to safety.
In the end, after almost 40 hours of sheer terror, all 33 survivors were pulled from the deep. 26 of their crewmates never made it out. A later inquiry cleared Captain Naquin completely, praising his incredible leadership. And the lessons learned from the Squalus disaster led to a whole new set of safety rules, and the McCann Rescue Chamber became standard equipment, saving countless other lives for decades to come.
This rescue was a huge moment, really. It kicked off a whole new era of submarine safety. But it was a success that was born from an impossible choice. And that kind of leaves us with a question to think about. What do you make of the sacrifice of those men behind that sealed door? A choice that saved 33 lives, but ended 26.